Welcome to the Get Fit Guys, quick and dirty tips to slim down and shape up. My name is Ben Greenfield, and I'm the Get Fit Guy. When it comes to the sweet spot for getting a better body, one of the top strategies for getting impressive results fast is to lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. That's the holy grail, right? Well, losing fat and gaining muscle simultaneously is a topic I've covered previously in the episode How to Lose Fat and Gain Muscle at the Same Time, which I'll link to over in the show notes for this episode at quickanddirtytips.com. There's been some new research since I first published that episode that's happened. So in this episode, you're going to learn exactly how many calories you should eat when you're trying to lose fat and gain muscle at the same time, and the best type of fat loss muscle building workout you should do. As you learned in my first episode on this topic, while it certainly seems counterintuitive that you can have the body in a loss state and a gain state at the same time, it turns out that if you do the right things, you can indeed lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. And the strategies that you need to use to do this are, number one, combining calorie restriction with weight training. Number two, giving yourself specific days of the week to refeed with higher calorie intake, also known as calorie cycling. And number three, avoiding excessive aerobic cardio, which breaks down the muscle you're trying to build and just gives you a skinny fat look. And you can learn more about that in my episode, How to Avoid Being Skinny Fat. So in addition to those three basic rules, let's start with how many calories you should eat for fat loss and muscle gain, and how fast you should lose fat if you're trying to simultaneously gain muscle. This topic was recently addressed in a study, and in this study, changes in body composition, strength, and power were measured during a weekly body weight loss program of either 0.7% per week, which was called a slow reduction fat loss program, versus a body weight loss of 1.4% per week, which was called a fast reduction fat loss program. Now, in the slow reduction group, total calorie intake was reduced by about 20% below what people were used to eating. But in the fast reduction group, calorie intake was reduced by about 30%. Now, both groups were able to lose fat, but the only group that was able to both lose fat and gain muscle at the same time was the slow reduction group that reduced their calories by about 20%. So it turns out that if you undercut your calories too much on a fat loss, muscle gain diet, then you won't be able to do the muscle gain part. So if you're currently eating, let's say, 2,000 calories per day, you could safely reduce your calories by 20%, which would be 400 calories, putting you at 1,600 calories per day. Now, if you ate less than that, you technically wouldn't be able to gain muscle. But that wasn't all of the data that could be gleaned from this study. It also turns out that the results show that the ideal rate of weight loss in a fat loss muscle gain program was 0.7% per week, or the slow reduction group. So if you weigh 150 pounds, let's say, then 0.7% of 150 is just 0.007 multiplied by 150. And that comes out to a weight loss of 1.05 pounds per week. Now, that might seem like a slow rate of weight loss, but remember, at the same time that you're losing fat, you're gaining muscle. So your body is definitely going to look different as you go. Now, should you diet or should you exercise for fat loss or muscle gain? That's another question that I wanted to tackle in this episode because another recent review looked at the most effective techniques used by bodybuilders who are getting ready for a bodybuilding show. Now, as an ex-competitive bodybuilder, I can attest to the fact that in those final weeks leading up to the pressure of posing on stage in little more than your underwear, there's an enormous emphasis on maintaining all the muscle you've worked so hard to build while simultaneously losing as much fat as possible. Now, it turns out that bodybuilders who combined excessive aerobic exercise with calorie restriction were able to successfully lose fat while leading up to their competition. But they actually lost more muscle compared to bodybuilders who instead focused on calorie restriction without doing as much aerobic cardio. And this kind of makes sense since high amounts of aerobic cardio is catabolic, meaning that it can break down muscle very easily. Now, that's actually one of the strategies that I personally used to transform myself from a 210-pound bodybuilder into a relatively skinny 175-pound triathlete. I literally combined high amounts of cardio with calorie restriction, and that ate up my muscle. Now, as you can probably imagine, if I were trying to gain muscle and lose fat at the same time, that strategy would have been a pretty bad idea. So, let's finish with what a good fat loss and muscle gain program would actually look like. And it's pretty simple based off what you've just learned. You'll want to lift heavy enough weights to build muscle, while at the same time avoiding lots of cardio. You'll want to eat about 20% fewer calories per week than you're used to eating, and you'll want to shoot for a weight loss of about 0.7% per week. For example, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you could do 5 sets of 5 repetitions of squats, overhead press, deadlift, pull-up, and bench press. 5 exercises that do a pretty good job building muscle, and that's a classic what's called 5x5 type of muscle gain program. Next, on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, you could do 20 to 30 minutes of high-intensity interval cardio, which is much different than long aerobic cardio sessions. This would be, for example, 10 sets of 30 seconds of hard bicycling efforts, with each effort separated by full recovery. And then you could use a day like Sunday as a full recovery day for your body to rebuild that muscle and recover. Now, on each of these days, you'd want to eat enough protein to be able to build muscle while avoiding excessive amounts of sugar, starch, fried foods, and vegetable oils. So, for example, you could have my world-famous green smoothie for breakfast. And in the show notes to this episode over at quickanddirtytips.com, I'll link to a video of me making that smoothie. You could have a large salad with nuts, avocados, and olives for lunch. You could have fish and roasted vegetables with perhaps some white rice or sweet potatoes for dinner, and a protein shake with a healthy protein powder mixed with, say, coconut or almond milk in the morning or in the afternoon, whichever happens to be after your workout. Now, of course, I recommend that you do have one day on which you eat slightly more calories than usual. That's your refeed day or your calorie cycling day. And for me, that means a bit of dark chocolate and red wine in the evening, or even one of my favorite indulgences, coconut ice cream. Now, as long as you're exercising and lifting weights, you can get away with that type of cheat every once in a while on a muscle gain fat loss program. Now, I realize that we may have only scratched the surface of your questions on how to lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. So if you have more questions, head over to facebook.com/getfitguy, and I'd be happy to help you over there. You can also check out my book on how to have the ideal workout for your unique body shape and body type. And that's over at getfitguy.com. Until next time, I'm Ben Greenfield, the Get Fit Guy, asking you, what are you waiting for? Go get fit.